There's a food sitting in your kitchen right now that you probably think is one of the healthiest things you can eat. Your doctor might have even told you to eat more of it. It's on every list of superfoods. It's recommended for heart health, for losing weight, for living longer. You've been buying it for years, maybe decades, because you genuinely believe it's good for you. But if you're over 55, this food might actually be doing more harm than good. And the truth about it has been hidden from you by decades of nutrition myths and food industry marketing. I'm talking about whole grains, whole wheat bread, brown rice, oatmeal, whole grain cereals, quinoa. All of those foods you've been told are essential for a healthy diet. Now, before you dismiss what I'm saying, before you think this is just another fad diet claim, I need you to hear me out. Because what happens to your body when you eat these foods changes dramatically as you age, and almost nobody is talking about it. Let me explain what's really going on. When you eat whole grains, your body breaks them down into sugar. Yes, sugar. It doesn't matter that they're complex carbohydrates or that they have fiber. At the end of the day, that whole wheat bread, that bowl of oatmeal, that brown rice, they all get converted into glucose in your bloodstream. And after 55, your body's ability to handle that glucose changes in ways that can be devastating to your health. Here's what happens. As you age, your cells become resistant to insulin. This is called insulin resistance, and it happens to almost everyone to some degree. Your pancreas produces insulin to help sugar get into your cells for energy. But when your cells become resistant, they don't respond to insulin the way they used to. So your pancreas has to pump out more and more insulin to do the same job. You end up with high insulin levels circulating in your blood, even if your blood sugar tests come back normal. And here's where whole grains become a problem. Every time you eat that whole grain toast for breakfast, that brown rice with lunch, that whole wheat pasta for dinner, you're spiking your blood sugar. And every spike requires an insulin response. When you're younger, your body can handle this. But after 55, especially if you've been eating a grain-heavy diet your whole life, your system is exhausted. Your pancreas is working overtime. And those constant insulin spikes are causing damage you can't see. High insulin levels trigger inflammation throughout your body. They tell your body to store fat, particularly around your midsection. They interfere with your hunger hormones, making you feel hungry even when you've just eaten. They damage your blood vessels. They increase your risk of heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. And the cruel irony is that the whole grain foods you've been eating to prevent these diseases might actually be contributing to them. But there's something even more insidious about whole grains that nobody talks about. They contain compounds called lectins and phytates. These are natural chemicals that plants produce to defend themselves from being eaten. Think about it. A plant can't run away from predators, so it has chemical defenses, and grains are loaded with them. Lectins can damage the lining of your gut. They can create tiny holes in your intestinal wall, leading to what's called leaky gut. When your gut becomes leaky, particles of food and bacteria can slip through into your bloodstream. Your immune system sees these as foreign invaders and attacks them. This creates chronic inflammation and can lead to autoimmune problems, joint pain, skin issues, brain fog, and digestive distress. And as you get older, your gut lining is already becoming more vulnerable. Adding lectins to the mix is like pouring gasoline on a fire. Phytates are called anti-nutrients because they bind to minerals in your digestive system and prevent you from absorbing them. So that whole grain bread you're eating, thinking you're getting iron and zinc and magnesium, the phytates in the grain are actually blocking your body from absorbing those minerals. After 55, when you're already at higher risk for mineral deficiencies, when your bones need calcium and your muscles need magnesium, and your immune system needs zinc, you cannot afford to be eating foods that actively prevent nutrient absorption. Let me tell you about something else in whole grains that's particularly problematic for people over 55. It's called gluten. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'm not celiac, I don't have a gluten allergy, so gluten doesn't affect me. But that's not entirely true. Celiac disease is an extreme reaction to gluten. But there's something called non-celiac gluten sensitivity that affects far more people, and it gets worse with age. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. It's sticky and hard to digest. And as you age, your digestive system produces less stomach acid and fewer digestive enzymes. This means you can't break down proteins like gluten as effectively as you used to. When gluten isn't fully digested, it can trigger inflammation in your gut. It can cause bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, brain fog, fatigue, headaches, and joint pain. Many people suffer from these symptoms for years, never realizing that their daily whole wheat bread is the culprit. And here's something that will probably shock you. Gluten can affect your brain. There's growing research showing that gluten can trigger inflammation in the brain, particularly in people who are sensitive to it. This inflammation is linked to depression, anxiety, memory problems, and even neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Your gut and your brain are connected through what's called the gut-brain axis. When your gut is inflamed from gluten, that inflammation can travel to your brain. Now let's talk about something that the food industry really doesn't want you to know. Modern wheat is not the same as the wheat your grandparents ate. Over the past 50 years, wheat has been hybridized and modified to increase crop yields. The wheat we eat today is shorter, grows faster, and contains much higher levels of gluten and other problematic proteins than ancient varieties. It's also sprayed heavily with pesticides, particularly glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup. Glyphosate doesn't just kill weeds. Studies are showing that it disrupts your gut bacteria, damages your gut lining, and interferes with your body's ability to detoxify. And it's all over conventional wheat and oats. So when you're eating that bowl of conventional oatmeal every morning, thinking you're doing something healthy, you're also ingesting pesticide residues that are harming your gut microbiome. Your gut bacteria, your microbiome, this is one of the most important factors in your health as you age. A healthy microbiome supports your immune system, produces vitamins, regulates your mood, controls inflammation, and even affects your brain health. But whole grains, particularly modern wheat, can disrupt your microbiome. The combination of gluten, lectins, phytates, and pesticide residues creates an environment where harmful bacteria can flourish and beneficial bacteria struggle. Here's another thing about whole grains that affects people over 55 particularly hard. They're very high in carbohydrates. A single slice of whole wheat bread has about 15 grams of carbs. A cup of brown rice has 45 grams. A bowl of oatmeal has about 30 grams. If you're eating the standard American diet with whole grains at every meal, you're easily consuming 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrates per day. Now, when you're younger and active, your body might be able to handle that. But after 55, especially if you're less active than you used to be, your body simply doesn't need that much fuel. Those excess carbohydrates get stored as fat. And not just any fat. Visceral fat. The dangerous fat that accumulates around your organs and drives inflammation and disease. And here's what really happens when you eat a grain-based breakfast. Let's say you have whole grain toast with jam and orange juice. Within 30 minutes, your blood sugar spikes dramatically. Your pancreas releases a flood of insulin. Your blood sugar then crashes a couple of hours later, leaving you hungry, tired, and craving more carbs. So you reach for a whole grain granola bar or crackers. Another spike, another crash. This pattern repeats all day long. Your body is on a blood sugar roller coaster, and you're exhausted, hungry, and gaining weight despite eating what you think are healthy foods. But let me tell you what happens when someone over 55 reduces or eliminates grains from their diet. Within days, the bloating goes away. Within a week or two, their energy stabilizes. They're not hungry all the time. They're not craving sugar at 3 in the afternoon. Within a few weeks, they start losing weight, particularly around their midsection. Their joint pain often improves. Their brain fog lifts. They sleep better. Their skin looks better. Their mood improves. I'm not making this up. This is what happens when you stop flooding your system with foods that spike your blood sugar, damage your gut, and trigger inflammation. Your body finally gets a chance to heal. Now, I can already hear the objections. But what about fiber? Don't I need whole grains for fiber? Here's the truth. You can get all the fiber you need from vegetables and low-sugar fruits. A cup of broccoli has more fiber than a slice of whole wheat bread and doesn't spike your blood sugar or damage your gut. Leafy greens, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, berries, these are all excellent sources of fiber without the downsides of grains. What about B vitamins? Don't whole grains provide B vitamins? Yes, they do. But they're often synthetic vitamins that have been added back in after processing. And remember those phytates? They're blocking absorption anyway. You can get B vitamins from meat, fish, eggs, and vegetables in forms your body can actually use. But what about heart health? Haven't we been told for decades that whole grains prevent heart disease? Here's what the research actually shows. The studies that claimed whole grains are heart healthy were mostly observational studies. They compared people eating whole grains to people eating refined grains and sugar. Well, of course, whole grains look better in that comparison. But there are very few studies comparing whole grain eaters to people who eat low-carb, grain-free diets rich in vegetables, healthy fats, and quality proteins. And the studies that do exist often show that the grain-free approach is superior for heart health markers. Think about it logically. Heart disease is driven by inflammation, oxidative stress, and metabolic dysfunction. Whole grains spike your blood sugar, trigger insulin responses, contain gut-damaging compounds, and promote inflammation. How exactly is that protecting your heart? Let me address another common concern. What about osteoporosis? Don't we need grains for bone health? Actually, the opposite is true. Remember those phytates in grains? They bind to calcium and prevent its absorption. The acidic load from grain consumption can actually cause your body to pull calcium from your bones to neutralize it. Many people who eliminate grains and increase their intake of nutrient-dense animal foods and vegetables see improvements in their bone density. Here's what I want you to understand. The recommendation to eat whole grains came from a combination of flawed science, food industry lobbying, and genuine misunderstanding about human nutrition. For decades, we were told that fat was the enemy and carbs were good. Entire institutions, careers, and industries were built on this foundation. And even though the science has evolved and we now know that this advice was wrong, it's very hard to turn that ship around. The food industry makes enormous profits from grain-based foods. They're cheap to produce, they have a long shelf life, and they're addictive because of the blood sugar spikes they cause. There's no profit in telling you to eat eggs and vegetables. But there's massive profit in convincing you that you need whole grain cereals, breads, pasta, and snack bars. And your body, especially after 55, is paying the price. The fatigue you feel, the weight you can't lose, the joint pain, the digestive issues, the brain fog, the mood swings, the increasing need for medications. Much of this could be directly linked to the whole grains you're eating every day. Now, I'm not saying you can never eat a grain again. But I am saying that if you're over 55 and you're struggling with your health, weight, or energy, eliminating or dramatically reducing grains might be the single most powerful change you can make. Try it for 30 days. Cut out the bread, the pasta, the rice, the oatmeal, the cereals, Replace them with vegetables, quality proteins, healthy fats, and some low-sugar fruits. See how you feel. You might be surprised to discover that the healthy food you thought was helping you was actually holding you back. And once you experience what it feels like to eat in a way that truly supports your body at this stage of life, you'll never want to go back.